you guys today about a few cool ways that you can look at real estate and the tax benefits it comes with, just to help get you to your goal a little more quickly. I want to talk to you guys about 4 ideas that I think you should consider. I would like to tell you guys a really cool way you have the opportunity to make $2.5 million, not pay taxes on it, and not end up in prison. The prison part is kind of on you, but this won't let you get in prison. I would like to teach you guys a cool way that you can set your kids up for financial independence. And overall, I really just want to teach you a few new ways to think about real estate and kind of how it can fit into your journey. So I have been in tax and public accounting for about a decade, and I got into it for a lot of the same reasons you guys love finance, right? It's innovative, it's creative, you find ways to save money. There's so many cool, unique things that you can really dive into. And then when I got into tax, that actually wasn't most of what they cared about. And so what I found was that what they wanted was for me to think inside the box, literally and figuratively. And this kind of created a problem because the same time I got into tax, I got into real estate investing. And so the people who I would have come in as clients were people who weren't thinking inside the box. So these were people who shared my passion, who understood what I was passionate about. We had these same goals. They would come into the firm and they would say, here's what I'm doing. I'm going to retire by 40 or I'm going to retire by 30. And the partners would basically just dismiss it. Not only did they not understand it, they didn't get it. Like, they had no shared passion for it. So this was kind of my first moment of this isn't gonna work. The way a lot of tax people look at things like this and look at anyone who's kind of creating their life by design and not doing the traditional, there's a little bit of a disconnect. So that was kind of the first moment when I was like, I might have to go out on my own so that I can keep working with the community of people that I'm passionate with, that I share the same values with. The next aha moment for me was a zebra. I like to tell people that I had to open my own tax firm because of a zebra, and it's not untrue. One of the very last tax returns I did when I was working for someone else was a petting zoo. And I remember looking into the return and realizing I now had to research the depreciable life of a zebra. And I just sat there, and I was like, well, this is so obscure, I'm never going to use this again. What a ridiculous thing to be doing at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday. So that was kind of the other moment for me when I realized that the problem with a lot of tax and finance professionals is they have to know little bits about everything, but a lot of them aren't passionate about anything, so they don't connect with us. Every time I tell this story, someone asks me, all right, how long can I depreciate my zebra? I don't remember because, shockingly, this actually hasn't come up again. But the reason it is incredibly important to work with someone who understands what you do is that they do know. And luckily, I have a friend who works with agriculture. So I asked him how long you depreciate a zebra. Of course, it depends on how old your zebra is. Totally makes sense. And if your next question is the same as mine, you're going to want to know, what the hell is a mixed-use zebra? So there you go. So everyone learned something today that now you can go 10 years without having to use. So I bring this up because I've always been a creative person. I have always loved thinking outside the box. I always knew I wasn't going to work for my entire life in a cubicle. And so obviously you look at that and you look at me today and you think, yeah, of course she went into tax, that makes sense. We have to look at things differently, and that's what I'm hoping you guys will kind of do today. The same time that I was started in tax, I was in the Seattle area. And I was living in this 100-year-old house just north of Seattle, and my best friend and I were renting this house and paying $1,800 a month. It was awesome. And early 2015, the landlord came to me and said, Natalie, do you want to buy the house? And as much as I knew that I wanted to get into real estate, I didn't really want this house, right? I was like, oh, it's old, it doesn't have heat in 3 rooms, there's a shed in the back that is infested with squirrels. So I made every excuse I could to not buy this house. And so instead what I did was I just continued to give this man $1,800 a month for several more years to borrow this house. Cool, super good job, Natalie. So then when I looked back, this house most recently sold for almost $500,000, and I remember sitting there looking at this and thinking how much better my overall financial statement would have looked if I had an extra $200,000 sitting on it. But I kept borrowing the house. So the reason I bring this up, and it's a huge passion point for me, is I think a lot of us do this. Based on this super official poll I took, most of you live somewhere. You live in something and you pay money to do it. I have the pink area there because I knew what kind of conference I was coming to, and I knew some of you were going to be living in a van, traveling, or you were going to be fully nomadic, and sure enough, I have met you guys this weekend. But most of us are doing this anyway, right? So I am not here to tell you you should be investing in real estate. That's the only way to retire early. That's the best option. I'm just here to tell you we are paying money to live somewhere most of the time anyway. So let's maybe look at if there's a way we can utilize that and just be a little more strategic and see if we can get to our goals more quickly. So I think a lot of us start in the same scenario I did, which is roommates, right? We go to college, we're living with our friends, we're renting an apartment, roommates. For some reason, as soon as we switch to buying a property, well, that's ours. I don't want to live with people anymore. Like, I am an adult. I want the golden retriever, the picket fence. I don't want roommates. But sharing your house and renting the other rooms is one of the best options for keeping your housing costs down. In real estate, we call it house hacking. Super simple concept. It is roommates. You own the house, right? You're just renting the bedrooms you don't use. I see a lot of you guys looking at me like, Natalie, no, I'm not dealing with roommates at this point. Cool, neither am I. How about a duplex? Pretty sweet. It's like a BOGO deal on your house, right? You bought your apartment to live in. They gave you a whole other one. You get to rent that out and use that money to offset your monthly housing cost. Natalie, where I live, doesn't have duplexes. Totally understand. I live in Charlotte. We don't either. How about a house with a second unit, some kind of dwelling, mother-in-law apartment, apartment over a garage, basement unit, backyard ADU? Love this option. This gives you your own personal space. You're not even sharing a wall with someone else. And again, you can offset your housing cost. There are even cities right now, I know that Austin and Atlanta and Boston all have programs where they have pre-approved plans for ADUs that you can put in your backyard. Why? There's a housing shortage. They want you to build more places for people to live. So they've taken away a bunch of the red tape so that you can just build a little house in your yard and rent it out and be able to, again, have something that offsets that monthly cost. I bring this up, and this is like one of my passion points, because so many people are spending an insane amount of their monthly income on housing. Over 12 million Americans are spending half their paycheck on rent. This is so much money, and it creates a huge problem if any of these people are trying to get to FI, and if they're trying to retire anytime soon, because if you want to retire in the next 17 years, you have to have a savings rate of 50%. And that math isn't mathing, right? This doesn't really work. So we have to get creative. And I know if there's something you guys love, it is getting creative. So this is my current housing situation. I live in Charlotte, North Carolina. I have a 4-bedroom house, and it has a mother-in-law apartment. So good. I rent this apartment for $1,650 a month. I rent one of my spare bedrooms for $1,200 a month. These numbers are a little high level because there's some utilities that I include. I'm not including some of the random maintenance costs and vacancy costs. But as a whole, I'm coming out ahead. So I've not only created a circumstance where I've gotten my housing cost below the sort of target goal for a lot of people of 30%, not only did I get my housing costs down to 0, I'm getting paid to live in my house. And I don't know a lot of other ways you can do that without involving cameras. So this is a fantastic option. I love getting paid to just exist where I live. I know you guys are thinking, well, you've said this over and over. This is how you reduce your housing costs. It is, but you can take this the other direction too. Those of you who are here for Fat Fire, one of the most common types of real estate to have second living quarters, high-end real estate. right? So if you are someone sitting there going, oh, I've got 10 years, 10 years, we're gonna buy our dream house at the coast, it's gonna be fantastic, I can't wait. Well, what if it costs $2,000 less a month because it came with a guest house that you can rent out? Would it be cool if you could move into your dream house in 6 years instead? Pretty cool. Bonus points if anyone remembers this pool house from an early 2000s drama. Yes. So this works for Fat Fire too, right? This is a great way to just create unique circumstances to live in the way you want without your costs going up. The next option I want to talk to you guys about, the second idea here, this is something that most of us are familiar with, the 121 exclusion or primary home sale exclusion. This is one of the very, very, very best things in the entire tax code. It basically says that if you own and occupy your main home, your primary home, for 2 of the most recent 5 years, you can exclude $250,000 from tax of gain if you're single. You can exclude $500,000 of gain if you're married. There's very few ways I can think of, again, legally, that you can make this much money and not pay taxes on it. So in theory, right, in a perfect universe, if you are just chef's kiss mastering this, in a 10-year window, that's a potential $2.5 million you're not going to pay tax on. Do I think this is reasonable? I don't. Do I think this is very likely? I don't. But you guys made the mistake of having me talk today, and all day yesterday, people kept telling me I was only limited by my imagination. So now, I want one of you guys, 10 years from now at Economy, to come up to me and say, Natalie, I figured it out. I did it. I hit the 2.5. If anyone can figure it out, it's someone in this room. So you guys made the mistake with that level of encouragement. But even if we look at a more reasonable way that this is likely to play out, this is an actual client of mine. This is what they ran through in a 10-year window, just kind of having a plan ahead of time that they were going to kind of move into houses, fix them up a little bit, move every couple of years. They were able to amass an extra $500,000, a little more, that they didn't have to pay tax on. Could you think about 10 years from now, if just for doing what you're doing, you're just living in your house, living your life, and 10 years later, just because you kind of planned for this, moved a couple times, you had an extra $500,000 sitting in your hands. Would that get you to your goals a little bit more quickly? It might. And I know what you guys are thinking. This is ridiculous, Natalie. How am I going to make a house worth $500,000 more? I live in the middle of nowhere. Like, that doesn't happen. I get it. This doesn't work everywhere. It doesn't work to the greatest extent everywhere. But it always works, right? You always get to exclude some amount of gain, and there's a few ways that you can kind of encourage this strategy to work a little more. The first one is what I think we all think about, right? Fixer-upper. If you're really handy, if you've got a Pinterest board just like waiting to live out its dreams, this is for you, right? Find the crappiest house in the best neighborhood. That's what we're doing. This next option a lot of people don't think about, find a house with land. If you have a house with land that you're using as your primary, you are allowed to parcel off and sell that extra land separately within a 2-year window of when you sell your main house, and you get to exclude that income under that same limit. So this is a fantastic way that just by when you're looking for your next house, look at your county, see what it takes to separate out a piece of land, and then consider that when you're buying, knowing you're buying something that now comes with a little chunk of money attached. So there are some unique ways to get there. One of my other favorite ways that you can just use your house to make money, right? We're all living in them anyway, might as well do something with it, is this 14-day exclusion, right? The Augusta rule. So you can rent your primary home up to 14 days a year, totally tax-free. You don't pay tax on the income, you don't report the income, you don't report the expenses. I hope this is the only time this year an accountant tells you not to report something. Most times you do, this you don't. So 14 days of rental, no taxable income. This works incredibly well if you are somewhere where there's a really high demand opportunity, right? You're where the Super Bowl's gonna be. Several years ago, there was some huge meteor shower, and my hometown was listed as like the place in America to watch it. I reached out to all of my friends who lived there. Hotels in that area were canceling reservations that people had had booked for years because they could now triple the price of rooms because there was this sudden huge demand. So anyone I knew who still lived there, I said, look, it doesn't sound that great, but if you can crash on your mom's couch this weekend and rent your house out, you have a fantastic opportunity to make $10,000 and not pay taxes on it. Does that sound cool to you, or should I hang up? It sounded pretty cool to most of them. They did not want me to hang up. The last thing I have for you guys is not fully real estate, but it's something this is like the hill I will die on. So I don't know if you guys have heard the same thing, but people tell me kids are expensive. So let's try to shift this the other way a little bit, right? So if you have kids, there's a good chance you're already paying them to help with chores, help around the house, they get an allowance. Cool, awesome. Let's set them up for understanding money. But what if instead your kids help you with your rentals, or they help you with your business, or they help you with a side hustle, or you create a side hustle for them to help with? You can pay your children to work for you, and you can pay them up to the standard deduction each year, and it's tax-free. So this means just shy of $15,000 for this year. You can pay them, and they do not have to pay tax on that money, and because they're working for their parents, there's not even payroll tax on that money. So why do I think this is so great? There's kind of a few reasons that tie into it. The first thing, we're getting to take money out of your grown-up adult tax bracket and move it to their kid's 0 tax rate. That in and of itself is great, right? Fantastic opportunity to put yourself in a better financial position. That is sort of the first and main thing people think of. This is also a strategy that, unfortunately, maybe fortunately, has gotten incredibly popular on social media. There's a lot of really bad information out there. We're gonna have a fire round. These are the things you can and can't do. So yes, your kids really have to do the work. No, you can't pay your toddler $100 an hour. Yes, they should be set up like an actual employee. No, you shouldn't issue them a 1099. No, you can't just say you paid them. Yes, they should get a W-2. Yes, I know that Mark Kohler says you don't have to file anything. No, he is not correct. Yes, you should check your state labor laws. No, you shouldn't do this from your S-Corp. That can make more taxes. And yes, this even counts with rentals. So there's a lot of nuance. There's a website with more information, but it is always worth looking into as a way to drop your income and kind of set your kids up to understand business in general. Like I mentioned, you have to pay your kids something reasonable, right? Your toddler doesn't make $100 an hour. They don't have motor skills. So to get to that maximum amount, you can't just assume that's where you're gonna land, right? Because a lot of kids won't work 20-hour work weeks. I don't think you should do that to your children. I don't know, I don't have them. I don't know what they're capable of, but it sounds like a lot. I don't wanna work a 20-hour work week. So what if instead we looked at like a lower goal here? So I like looking at $7,000 as a goal, right? Because when your kids now have earned income, your children can now fund a Roth IRA. And if there's any room I don't have to tell about the time value of money, it is this room. So getting to have your kids fund their IRA from the time they're in grade school is an exponential advantage over most of the world. So what this looks like is instead of, you having to buy stuff for your kids, right? So you're earning your adult money, paying taxes, buying Timmy his first car. Instead now, Timmy is working for you and earning money, not paying taxes, buying his car. Also, what we're getting to do is fund Timmy's Roth IRA. So if from the time he's 7 years old, you were putting this $7,000 a year into that IRA, by the time he's old enough to vote, he should have around 6 figures in there. That is an incredible advantage to have at that age, and it puts them ahead of most Americans in their 20s and even in their 30s. So I cannot speak enough about employing your kids and looking into this because it's a compound advantage where you're setting your kids up for their financial future and at the same time putting yourself in a better spot, saving yourself money on taxes. So those are my 4 big ideas for you guys. And the main takeaway I was hoping you would have from this, like I said, I'm not here to convert you to the real estate side, but if you are a little curious, come talk to me. But I really was just hoping that you would have a new way to view real estate and just how it fit into your financial journey, right? And just look at it as real estate isn't just black and white when it comes to how it fits into investing and what it can do for you, but there's actually kind of a lot of colorful choices in between. So I appreciate you guys listening to me, and thank you so much.